Right. I think we've got enough of you in here. Might as well just get going here. It's been busy one on our end, busy month, busy day. A lot of that has to do with what we're rolling out towards the end of the month with a really big release for BizNexus for the agency. In that, you're going to have more of an option to go deeper on these topics, right? So these lunch and learns, again, are just designed to be quick, get right into it, give you something actionable, hopefully have you walk away 15, 30 minutes later feeling like your time was well spent. But you will have the opportunity to go deeper into pretty much everything that we're talking about at the end of the month. So I'll leave it at that, but just expect a big release is coming soon. We're really excited about it and quite frankly, a little overwhelmed this month. So bear with us. Getting into the theme for this month, right? So we've changed these lunch and learns going forward. We're going to have the monthly theme. We're going to just rotate that every month. We've loved the feedback to date on this switch. So I don't think we're not going to be changing that. We're just going to be doubling down on this going forward. But the themes are going to be created according to your feedback. So again, every lunch and learn that we have, you guys get the prompt for feedback. If you want a specific topic, please offer feedback because that is 100% what we're basing these monthly themes on. We have our own ideas, but we do want to hear it from you guys. We're trying to listen. We're trying to dig into the issues that you actually want to spend your time on. So February, we're doing multi-channel outreach. That initially started just because it's something that I see particularly intermediaries, Main Street intermediaries, routinely failing at. And so it's something that we're constantly working on internally, helping clients. But we've also had a lot of requests throughout these lunch and learns just to go a little more deeply into this topic, which is what we're doing in February. So last week we did the overview. Today we're just going to walk through a playbook sample. And again, at the end of the month, if you want multiple playbook samples, if you want multiple flyers and copy templates, you're going to have the opportunity to get those. And then next week, we're going to be focused on tools that we use internally, tools that we like, why we like them for multi-channel outreach. And then we'll close out with tips and tactics, and hopefully we'll have some questions for that last round, right? Whether you want to, I feel like people are shy to ask questions here in the lunch and learn, or maybe that's just not the format. Maybe we're just going into the nitty gritty stuff and getting on with our day. And I'm totally fine with that. Quite frankly, I'd rather not spend a bunch of time on Q&A because I think that does, if you're limiting a lunch and learn time frame, that typically will not be a good way to spend that limited time. But for that last session, ideally, we do walk in prepared with some questions from you guys. So again, in the feedback, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put those in there. We're not going to call you out. We'll just address the questions and hopefully give some good answers. So if this is your first lunch and learn, who am I? Why should you care? I run BN.Digital. That's an agency focused exclusively on off-market deal origination. And BizNexus, it's a platform for matching on-market deals, right? Publicly listed deals. So we match intermediaries with buyers and sellers, and intermediary-backed listings with buyers. So between those two offerings, that should ideally cover your deal origination efforts end to end. And if you're an intermediary, if you're doing buy-side work, you can hop on BizNexus, get matched with your fellow intermediaries' deals, and use BizNexus as a white label platform for that. Or if you're interested in off-market deal origination, you can just attend these lunch and learns, do it yourself, or you can come on as a client and we can do it for you. Our process is based on social selling. So what we're doing is we're trying to help you build up valuable networks, starting online, but across channels, ultimately to a real world relationship. Build up those relationships with your primary prospects, i.e. business owners in your space, in your niche, in your geographic territory, if that's how you operate. And then all of the referral prospects who can deliver those primary prospects on an ongoing basis. And with business brokerage, it's amazing how many successful brokers are out there who just get their deal flow from a few referral prospects. It really is amazing. I think some of the most successful, especially in Main Street, some of the most successful brokers have just been around for a while. and their main lead sources just come through a handful of referrals. And so what we're trying to do is scale that, right? We're not just going after business owners. That's obviously the primary prospect, but they may or may not be ready for what you're offering, right? They may or may not be ready to have that conversation about their exit plan. But the referral sources, if you can get in front of them, establish the relationships, stay in front of them, so that when they're meeting with all of their owners and the conversation comes up about, hey, I'm thinking about an exit plan, what are my next steps? Do you know anybody? You definitely want to get positioned to be recommended in that type of situation. So we're doing what works. We're just trying to scale it. The 5 stages that we use, we don't need to dig deeply into this because I do want to get back into the multi-channel outreach, but just look at this as a reflection of the fact that we see this as a long game, right? So we do see deal origination as a long game when done effectively. You can always get the quick hits if you find somebody who is interested in selling because of life events, divorce, health concerns, COVID related issues, right? But if especially once you get into middle market, if you're dealing with business owners who are thinking about an exit plan, they're gonna plan ahead. So a long game process like the one that we preach week in, week out here, in my humble opinion, whether it's worth anything or not, that's how I see it. The end goal of the whole process is to get that online relationship to turn into a world relationship and ideally a real world engagement, right? So getting a cup of coffee, getting a sit down, that's what we're doing. With multi-channel outreach, that really helps facilitate that. It helps accelerate the process of handshake, getting the meeting, putting a face to the name in person, or whatever that looks like in this COVID world that we're all in. So typically this is where I'll run through the updates. I'm going to skip that. Just we have a really big kind of monster release coming out this month that we're buried with. So BizNexus.com, that's where you get the platform. BN.Digital, that's where you get the off-market deal origination services, content. All of the videos for now are up there, freely accessible, so you can go back and review lunch and learns. We're going to have those available in a more organized fashion by the end of the month. So where we are this month, again, with multi-channel outreach, just targeting and building, right? Reaching out, how to do that across multiple channels. And again, it is amazing to me how many people don't do multi-channel outreach in this industry. And if they're doing multi-channel outreach, it's not tied together, right? So they have multiple vendors and they'll have an email vendor or a social vendor, or they'll have advertising, and none of it's connected. Huge mistake, especially if you're looking at this as a long-term process where you're trying to build up that network of primary and referral prospects. You want to make sure everything is coordinated. And what multi-channel does, it allows you to touch these prospects across multiple channels over time. So you are nurturing prospects who, for the most part, need to be nurtured, right? Business owners, especially if you're going after somebody who's been building their business for a lifetime, you're going to need to stay in front of them. You're going to need to offer them social proof. You're going to need them to see your posts and articles and newsletters and come around to the fact that you are a qualified authority in the industry of business acquisition and sale, and you're worth talking to. In 2021, the majority of these sellers, buyers, whatever you want to call them in internet world, they've done a lot of their research before they actually make that first approach, before they pick up the phone to call you. So you want to make sure that you have the right multi-channel outreach strategy and that your online brand is bulletproof, so that when you're putting your brand out there, they're seeing it, they're not seeing any red flags, anything that would rule you out of a transaction. They're seeing that in an acceptable cadence, but a reliable cadence across channels. And if you can do that, if you can scale that, if you can put a process in place that works, it is really effective. So those are the main benefits of multi-channel outreach. And so the rest of this might be very brief, guys. And if it's too little or too much or too brief, again, feedback, please. We do want to keep this valuable. So today I'm just going to go through one multi-channel playbook, right? It's one that we use. It's one that we like. It's very simple, but it's effective. And if you can get the tools, which we'll talk about next week for this, if you can get those tools in place and execute on this, just set it up as a scalable process. If you just do this, you're going to be far better off than the majority of potential clients who come our way. Really, I'm talking about intermediaries and buyout, right? So for whatever reason, intermediaries just don't do this, and buyout firms are probably worse, right? So for the firms that are actually out there with a pool of committed capital, and you're out there looking to buy multiple companies and bolt-ons, for whatever reason, they don't have, you're not doing the multi-channel outreach. You're not trying to stay in front of your end target prospect. Big mistake. So playbook number one, starting with LinkedIn, following with a snail mail flyer, following that with email, and then following with a call. Now you can flip all those around in different orders, and we've done that. We've seen people do that. But the main thing is this all has to be connected. And if you've been on these lunch and learns, you know that I always say start with data. If you have a good list, you start with data. So you have, LinkedIn, you have the physical address and the phone, you have reliable emails, you have, the reliable call data. That's the foundation. And that's what you build your multi-channel outreach campaign on, right? So I'll go through this playbook, but just keep in mind your data has to be good, right? And you have to have a good process in place for data. Otherwise, this will all go to hell pretty quickly. So LinkedIn, snail mail, email, call. Those are the 4 steps we're going to cover. And the bonus is rolling these prospects, right? If it's not resulting in that one-on-one conversation, rolling them into a nurturing campaign, which we're not going to go deeply into here because that's not the topic, but making sure that those prospects aren't just dropping off into the abyss, that they are getting rolled into the newsletter, right? If you have a posting and engagement strategy, on LinkedIn, right? Making sure that they're entered into that. If you're doing ad retargeting, great. That separates you from 95% of your competitors. That's extremely effective. Whatever your nurturing campaign is, if they go through this multi-channel outreach process and you don't get a one-on-one conversation, don't let them go. Put them in a nurturing campaign that you have already thoughtfully put together and will build your brand, not burn it. So step one for if you're going to lead with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is tricky, right? So everything that I say, do your own homework, do what you're comfortable with doing for your brand, for your practice, for your business. But LinkedIn, they're kind of playing around more with the idea that you should never invite someone to connect who you don't already know. That's ridiculous in my opinion. I think it's not how the majority of people are using LinkedIn. If you have somebody who you don't know and you have enough overlap, in my opinion, there's no reason why you wouldn't reach out. But you make your call on that. If you're going to lead with LinkedIn, you have to be comfortable with reaching out to people who you haven't met before. And if you don't want to lead with LinkedIn, go lead with something else and have LinkedIn in the process, right? It'll still work. But in this case, if we're leading with LinkedIn as your first step, you're just looking to build your network. And so with outreach, we're all getting the salesy outreach, the irrelevant outreach, or the poorly personalized outreach emails. If you can really start with a good list, with a specific list, and go after these prospects based on location, based on industry, based on keyword, right? Whoever you're looking for, make sure that it is hyper-focused, make it relevant, then you're going to do really well with leading with a step like this, right? So making sure that there's relevance. I'll use an HVAC example for the purpose of, for this lunch and learn. That's one that I typically use. So let's stick with that. If you're going after an HVAC owner, right, don't just look at HVAC. Don't just look at the industry. Try to narrow it down, right? So if you can narrow it down according to an HVAC group that they have in common with you, right, or that they're in, or if they're in a specific location, or if you're looking at HVAC and separating by alma mater. I mean, you can do a lot of things where you have multiple points of common overlap. That's very, very effective in today's noisy LinkedIn world. So you want to make it relevant as best you can, hyper-focused, pointing out overlap in your messaging, That's rule number one. So one example, you'd lead with, let's say you're going after John Doe HVAC owner, right? Like, John, you're reaching out to network with entrepreneurs around Miami. I'd love to connect, as it looks like we have some solid overlap in the HVAC space. Best Adam, something to that effect, where I'm targeting somebody based on not only their industry, but their location. And if you're in Miami, you can do that. If you're in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, maybe that's a little more difficult, but you get the point. You want to ideally target overlap on at least 2 points, and then you'll see much better results for something like that. Once you do this, ideally you'll have a clear list of who's in network, who is not in network, and then you can send out a snail mail flyer. Right now, the snail mail flyer is extremely effective, especially in the world of brokerage, but it's just not trackable. And again, apologies for the regulars here, because I do repeat myself on some of these points, but you want everything to be trackable, right? As best you can. You don't want to do anything with your outreach, with your marketing, unless it's trackable. Snail mail, there are a couple ways to make that somewhat trackable, which we'll go through. But for the most part, you don't know if a snail mail lands, if it just gets thrown in the trash before it ever makes it through the door, if it lands in the desk of your target business owner, or if a gatekeeper has gotten it and just recycled it. You have no idea. So leading with a snail mail, whatever your process is, if you're sending out 300 snail mails a month or a quarter to your business owner prospects, if you're leading with LinkedIn, it provides a really nice opportunity for you to reinforce your face. So whether you're using the same headshot that you're using in LinkedIn or a different headshot, you want to have your face on there. If you're a business broker, right? If you're if you're a solopreneur, you want to have your face on there, definitely, in my opinion. This is just a random template HVAC flyer that I found. Obviously, it's not focused on M&A, but it's worth going through, the elements that I think are working in this example. So top left, that's where you'd have your logo. Obviously, you want to have the logo, the brand reinforcement there. And you'll notice the contact information is clearly up top and at the bottom, right? So contact, you have the number, you have the website, you don't have an email, you don't have some sort of online calendar. You want to make it very easy for them to reach out if this is relevant in the moment, right? Then you have the professional HVAC service, whatever this is, right? Exit planning for HVAC businesses, right? Business valuation HVAC. This needs to be stupid simple. This needs to be very clear. What do we do and how is it relevant to you, right? So again, you're starting with your data. You're making sure that in this case, everyone is actually an HVAC owner in Miami, and you're sending out this flyer, and you're leading with your contact info, your face, and then a very stupid simple message that speaks to the benefits, right? You're speaking to the croc brain here, where if I'm going through mail and I'm rifling through mail, or if an admin is going through mail, they see this and they decide to throw it in the trash or hold on to it. So nothing overly complicated. We see a lot of that, just stupid simple. You just want to get this thing put in the drawer, not put in the trash. That's ideal, right? And if it's relevant, you want them to reach out in that moment. Then there are 3 bullets on the company. Ideally, again, you're speaking to the pain points of your prospect. You can talk about what you do, but always have in mind what you're doing to solve your prospect's pain points. So you can say, business valuation, but reference how HVAC valuations have skyrocketed during COVID, right? Something relevant to them. So you can talk about what you do, but you frame it so it hits a nerve, because it's relevant in the moment to them, to their pain point, right? Our plans, you can see here, they're putting together something to bait the user, right? So free estimates, free valuation. You don't want to use the word free in M&A, but complimentary consultation, right? Confidential consultation, right? I mean, if you're Main Street, I guess you could use the word free for, but I definitely steer away from that. That's brand damage, and that's going to rule you out of any larger transactions, definitely. At the bottom, you can see they've got some sort of discount. Again, you don't want to offer discounts in M&A, but again, if you have some sort of valuation estimation, right? So a lot of people are value builders, and maybe you've got a sellability analysis that you're running through there. That's a great spot for this, right? So bait them into doing something prompt, pull them in to engaging with your service, right? And that is a typical flyer. So you'll send that out. Some other things that I really like, if you can, try to set up links that go to a trackable page. So if you have a page that's clear, so biznexus.com/HVAC, right? Something that you can put on a flyer, and you have that as a trackable page, then if they click through to that, if they actually go visit this page, you'll be able to see if you have the right setup, if you have the right tools, which we'll cover next week, you'll be able to see anybody from this snail mail distribution list who's actually clicked through to that unique link, right? So you'll have confirmation that this person has received a snail mail and actually typed in that page, which is highly valuable. In my mind, that warrants a sales call on its own right there, right? If you're using the right tools, you can set up a task to identify that and do that. So that's the second step, the snail mail step. After the snail mail drops, maybe you wait 5 to 7 days and you send out an email, right? Here's where you're really just getting that, making sure that your value proposition is actually getting in front of the eyeballs, because you don't know that with the snail mail. You have no idea. You can do, you can have little tricks like I just went through with a trackable link, but for the most part, you just don't know where those things are landing. So with the email, you can track that. So following up your snail mail with that email step is extremely effective if you're using the right tool. There are a lot of tools out there. These things rotate really quarter over quarter, which ones are effective. We love a few. One that's great. Well, we'll go through that next week. So I'll run through the specific tools next week. But if you're using the right tool, you'll be able to track. You'll be able to track opens, and you'll be able to, most importantly, with this type of process, resend to unopens. So if you have a list of 100 prospects and 30 of them open the first email, you can resend to the 70 who didn't open with a different title. And the point of this email is pretty much just to have that trackable message sent, so you can see if your value prop has actually gotten in front of the eyeballs of these target prospects who you've put together the flyer for, and who you've already tried to pull into your LinkedIn, but also to get them to reach out if they've been thinking about it, if they're not doing it with a snail mail, to give them a chance to reply and get a meeting. So sticking with John Doe, HVAC owner, you could say, John, came across your profile on LinkedIn, given your background with heating and AC, thought it made sense to reach out. I have an exit planning firm based locally here in Miami, focused exclusively on HVAC. We've been helping owners identify and shortlist buyers in this market. Is this something you need help with? P.S. Here's a guide on the 5 top issues, the top 5 issues we see buyers in the HVAC space focusing on right now in this market. That's really just a quick bullet that I put together before this lunch and learn. So the chunks there, you have the intro, and I'm referencing the first approach, which was LinkedIn in this case. And then with background, it's not a generic, given your background in entrepreneurship, the type of crap that you get all the time on LinkedIn today. It's given your background with heating and AC. So, heating and AC, I'm using, industry vernacular, I'm using the lingo, so that, it's casual, it's an approach. You want to put yourself in the seat of your recipient, right? You want to think about whether or not you would open up this email, right? If you got it from somebody. So kind of casual leading in, establishing clear overlap, and then relevance. I have an exit planning firm based locally here in Miami, focused exclusively on HVAC. Again, we're targeting HVAC, local Miami. So you have at least 2 points of overlap. You're referencing that. That's going to have real effects when it comes to conversions, to conversion rates, to how many people are actually opening, engaging, opening multiple times, and or reaching out. We've been helping owners identify and shortlist buyers in this market, right? We know the market's changed. We know valuations are all over the place. We know there are a lot of new buyers. So we've been helping owners identify and shortlist who those buyers are. That's a step I can take. I'm not asking for, a free sit down and valuation so you can share your financials. It's just, hey, this is what we've been seeing. We have our finger on the pulse of the market. We know how it's been changing. We've been shortlisting potential buyers for businesses. That's what we're doing. Do you want to have a chat about it? Right. That's something that can convert. That's something that a prospect can take action on, and most likely will if they're at that point in the decision-making process. Is this something you need help with, right? Bam, ending there. You can have the PS that links out to something valuable, right? Again, hyper-focused on your prospect. So, what are the 5 things that we're seeing buyers turn up their nose at in this market, in the HVAC space? Something like that. Whatever you're sending it to, ideally it's trackable, right? So again, if you're sending them to a document online, an article online, you want to know when they click through to that. You want to know when this person in this multi-channel campaign is clicking through. So if they go and they visit that, you're going to see that. You're either going to get a sales task, or when you go and get a sales task, you're going to see it clearly in the life of that lead. You're going to see that they've not only accepted your LinkedIn request, clicked on the trackable page for the snail mail flyer, but they've clicked on, they've opened the email, 1 time, 5 times, and they've clicked through on this email document. You're going to have all of that data if you're doing it the right way. Then when you follow up with a call, just a couple tips before we close out, because I know I've kind of gone over here. What I like about ending with a call like this is that you're basing it on data. So you will have all of that data that I just referenced if you've done this the right way, right? It's not just a blind call. So, number 1, I always recommend you separate your tier 1 leads from your tier 2 leads, right? So if you can base a call on data, if somebody has, depending on the data that you started with, right? If you know which HVAC companies have over 5 million revenue and which ones have between 1 and 5, or which ones are under $1 million. Well, depending on the size of the list and your bandwidth, that's a great way to separate who's making those calls. Another great way, whether it's you or an admin or an intern or a junior broker, what have you, or a third-party firm, right? If you're using that. But then you can also separate based on activity. So if one of these leads has checked out your flyer on HVAC buyers multiple times, or they've opened up that value prop email multiple times, or they've been engaging with your social posting that you're doing on LinkedIn, if you pulled them in, if you can see them engaging on a repeat basis with your posting, that's a good indicator that they're interested, and you should make the call yourself if you can, right? Not an admin, not a junior broker, not a third-party firm, and you should have those tasks set up appropriately. So separating T1 leads from tier 2 leads from tier 3 leads, that's the first thing we want to do with allocating that task. Who makes the call? I like to separate calls into 2, right? So if it's a third-party firm, right, maybe they're calling and just offering to send the digital version of the flyer. So that snail mail that you sent out, you just get that as a PDF. You have a trackable link. You lob in a call, quick intro, kind of just send you the flyer, and I'll follow up next week, see if there's any interest, see if you have any questions. If not, we'll move on about our business. That sets it up so that you can make a call the following week. And when you make that call, you've already sent them something of value. They're going to be more open to having a bit of a conversation. So you'll be able to set up the second call to run through a quick pitch on what it is exactly you've been doing for prospects like these. What have you been doing to connect these HVAC owners with potential buyers in the Miami market, et cetera. And that goal should be, I'd love to sit you down with the main broker, or if it's you, I'd love to, have the discussion on a Zoom or meet in person if now isn't a good time. But that first call again should be, can I send you something? Done. And then the follow-up should be, I sent you something of value. So will you give me a few seconds to recap that and potentially set up the next step, which is some sort of larger commitment, a demo. In this industry, a demo doesn't make sense. So a Zoom with a lead broker, right? Just running through something like that. 1, 2. First call is send you something. Second call is elaborate. and book the meeting. That's the call process. And it's much easier to do if you are basing that on data so that you can prioritize the people who have engaged with your multi-channel campaign up to that point. So that's it, guys. This actually did go a lot longer than I thought it would. Next week, we're going to cover the tools, right? So what are the tools that we're using for each of those steps? If you want more sample plays from the playbook like that, let us know in the feedback, sorry. Again, we will have more of that at the end of the month, but we're excited where this is going. Hopefully this continues to get more valuable. If something is not valuable, please let us know again, because we're not going to continue doing this if it's not helpful for everybody. But so far it seems like it's been a win. So we're really happy about that. So thanks, guys. See you next week.